Stop protecting Trump. That was the unspoken charge hanging over every second of that hearing. And Senator Adam Schiff had the proof to back it up, in writing, under oath, on live television. What happened next wasn't political theater. It was a live dismantling. And the man sitting at that witness table never saw the final blow coming. Todd Blanche walked into that Senate Judiciary Committee chamber with the confidence of a man who believed he had already won, freshly nominated as Deputy Attorney General, Trump's former personal criminal defense attorney, now stepping into the second most powerful law enforcement seat in the United States. His legal team had prepared every deflection. His allies on the committee were ready with their softballs. He had rehearsed the exits, but Schiff wasn't carrying a briefing book that morning. He was carrying a blueprint, and he was about to use it. Here is what you need to understand before anything else. The Attorney General is supposed to be America's lawyer, not the president's lawyer, not the president's defender, America's lawyer. And what Schiff was about to prove, on the record, under oath, was that Todd Blanche had never stopped being Donald Trump's personal attorney. Not for one day, not for 1 hour, not even while sitting at that witness table preparing to take control of the Justice Department. But there was one moment, one question, that stopped the entire room cold, and it came before Schiff had even built his case. He leaned into the microphone. His voice was quiet, controlled, almost surgical. And then he asked something no senator had dared to ask that openly in recent memory. He said he wanted a personal opinion from Blanche, not a legal position, not a rehearsed statement, a personal opinion. He wanted to know whether Blanche, the man about to become the nation's top law enforcement officer, could stand before the United States Senate and say, in his own words, that Donald Trump was innocent. On Epstein, right now, in that room, today. The silence that followed lasted 4 full seconds. Blanche's jaw tightened. His fingers pressed flat against the table. His eyes shifted, not dramatically, not in a way a casual viewer would catch, but every camera in that room caught it. And every reporter in the press gallery understood what they were seeing in real time. This was not a man searching for a legal answer. This was a man who had just realized there was no safe door in this room. He never answered. He reached for procedure. He reached for process. He retreated into the language of a defense attorney who has trained himself for decades to never say anything that could be used against his client. His client, the man he was now supposed to regulate. And Schiff let the non-answer sit there. He didn't press it. He didn't need to, because the silence had already spoken louder than any answer Blanche could have given. And millions of people watching at home were now asking themselves the same question. Why can't the incoming Attorney General of the United States say that the president is innocent? But that wasn't even the most damaging part. What Schiff did next was more methodical, more devastating. And Blanche walked straight into it. Schiff established the first fact without drama. He asked Blanche directly, as of today, sitting in this chair, is your attorney-client relationship with Donald Trump still intact? Blanche said yes. His voice calm, almost defiant. Schiff let that land for exactly 2 seconds. Then the second fact. Even after confirmation, Blanche would still carry continuing legal obligations to Trump as a former client, a duty of loyalty, a duty of confidentiality over every private communication Trump had ever shared with him. Blanche confirmed it, and then, almost unbelievably, compared it to any DOJ attorney with any former client, as if the incoming Deputy Attorney General carrying a sworn legal duty of loyalty to the sitting president of the United States was a routine administrative detail. Schiff didn't raise his voice. He moved to the third fact. Attorney General Pam Bondi had already issued a memo. That memo established a weaponization working group. That working group was required by that same memo to be supported by the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, Blanche's future office. And that working group's mandate included reviewing DOJ prosecutions from the previous 4 years, the January 6th case, the Mar-a-Lago documents case, the Alvin Bragg case in Manhattan, 3 prosecutions, all 3 of which Todd Blanche had personally handled as Trump's defense attorney. Schiff lined all 3 facts up side by side. Then he asked the question a first-year law student could have answered. Is that a conflict of interest? Blanche looked directly at Schiff and said he wouldn't call it blatant. The temperature in that room dropped. Republican staffers who had spent the morning looking relaxed were suddenly very still. Even committee members who had nodded through the friendly questions were no longer nodding. Schiff removed the word blatant. He asked again, clear conflict of interest? Blanche said he couldn't say yes, and here is where the exchange became something that will be studied in law schools. Something that stopped being about one nominee and started being about the entire structure of power being built around this administration. Schiff pressed forward. Will you recuse yourself from overseeing the January 6th case, the Mar-a-Lago case, and the Alvin Bragg prosecution? 3 specific cases. 3 words required, yes or no. Blanche's response came slowly, carefully, like a man choosing every syllable. It depends, he said. He said if a career ethics attorney at the Department of Justice tells him he doesn't have to recuse, he would not commit to doing so anyway. Schiff repeated those 2 words back to the room. It depends. He let them echo the incoming Deputy Attorney General of the United States. The man who personally defended Donald Trump in all 3 of those prosecutions, who sat on the defense side of the table, who cross-examined federal prosecutors, whose entire professional mission was to destroy the government's case, had just confirmed he might choose to oversee investigations into those exact same cases, the cases where he fought against the government, and now he was being asked to be the government. Schiff said quietly that this tells him something. He moved on. But the room hadn't moved on. Then came the next question. Schiff asked whether Blanche supported making Volume 2 of the Special Counsel report public, the section detailing obstruction findings. The section's senior DOJ officials had already committed to releasing before this administration took power. No, Blanche said flatly. No hesitation this time. Schiff's eyes didn't move. He asked whether Blanche would commit to preserving the evidence in both investigations. Blanche straightened slightly in his chair and said, I commit to following the law. Schiff paused. Then he pointed out the difference out loud slowly for the record. Following the law is a general principle that any official can claim. Preserving specific evidence is a specific commitment that requires a specific answer. And the incoming Deputy Attorney General, Trump's own former defense attorney, would not say the words, I will not destroy evidence in cases I personally handled for the man who appointed me. He said that speaks very clearly to the nature of the conflict Blanche carries into this office. But what Schiff said next landed differently than anything else in that hearing. He looked at Blanche and he didn't ask a question. He issued a warning. He told Blanche plainly, if you continue down this path, the path Pam Bondi walked, shielding, deflecting, burying, running cover for the man who put you in this chair, don't expect a different ending. Bondi's exit was not quiet. It was not dignified. It was public and it was permanent. And every pattern Blanche was demonstrating right there in that chair, in front of that committee and those cameras, was the same pattern, the same reflexes. The same inability to draw a single line between loyalty to Trump and loyalty to the law. Blanche's posture changed. For the first time in that hearing, something shifted behind his eyes. His shoulders tightened. His hands, which had been resting flat on the table, pressed down harder against the surface. He said the characterization was unfair. He said he would follow ethical guidelines. Schiff did not respond. He didn't need to, because everyone in that room understood what the warning meant. Bondi had spent months performing the role of Attorney General while functioning as the president's personal shield. She had ended up cornered, exposed, and politically finished. And here was Blanche, not even confirmed yet, not yet behind the desk, not yet in possession of the full authority of the office. Already building the same architecture, already refusing the same basic commitments, already running the same playbook, and the record being built around him, line by line, question by question, non-answer by non-answer, was going to follow him. Blanche did not change his answers. He doubled down on the hedges. He retreated further into the language of a man who has spent his career making sure his client never loses. And that was precisely the point Schiff had spent the entire exchange constructing. Not a corrupt official hiding documents in real time. Not a smoking gun email on a screen. Something structurally more dangerous. A conflict so total, so deliberately constructed, so woven into the foundation of Blanche's appointment itself, that the incoming second highest law enforcement official in the United States had made himself constitutionally incapable of holding accountable the one man he was legally supposed to serve, without exception. 6 weeks after that hearing, Todd Blanche was confirmed as Deputy Attorney General by a vote of 52 to 46. He is now the Acting Attorney General of the United States. The cases he refused to commit to recusing from remain active. The evidence he refused to commit to preserving is still there. The working group he declined to distance himself from is operational. And the question Schiff asked in the first 2 minutes, the one that produced 4 seconds of silence, the one that made Blanche's fingers press flat against that table, the one no one in that room expected to be asked, is still unanswered. Can you tell us right now that he is innocent? The Acting Attorney General of the United States has never answered that question. So we're asking you, drop it in the comments right now. One word, yes or no. Should the Attorney General of this country be able to say, without hesitation, without hedging, without reaching for procedure, that the man who appointed him is innocent? Or does the silence, 4 seconds of it, captured on camera, already tell us everything we need to know? Because that silence didn't disappear when the hearing ended. It followed Blanche out of that building. It followed him through his confirmation vote. It follows him now. Every morning he walks into the Department of Justice carrying the title of Acting Attorney General of the United States. A man who could not say under oath in front of the Senate, with every camera in Washington rolling, that the president who appointed him is innocent. That is not a legal technicality. That is not a procedural nuance. That is the most fundamental disqualification imaginable for the role he now holds. And Adam Schiff said it plainly, in front of the country, while Blanche sat there and searched for a hedge that would make it disappear. It didn't disappear. The transcript is there. The record is there. The 4 seconds of silence are there. And now the question belongs to every American paying attention. What happens to a Justice Department when its leader cannot answer that question? What happens to the cases? What happens to the evidence? What happens to the principle that no man, not even the man who signs your paycheck, not even the man whose calls you still take, is above the law?